I don't think we could ever have a mineral show in Colorado without a certain edge to it. Of course, I'm speaking of the Collector's Edge, right here in Golden, Colorado. So they're here right now. During the pre-show interview we had with Richard Jackson, he teased that they have part of the Spann Collection available that they'll be showing on the floor. Let's go in. Let's see what they've brought to the 2023 Hard Rock Summit. And here we go, right into the booth of Collector's Edge. There's Chris right there. Hey, Chris, how you doing, brother?
Hey, good to see you.
Gail, my darling, how are you?
Hello, my love.
Lovely to see you. Jim, how are you, brother?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am fantastic. You guys are set here. We're all on the floor of the 2023 Hard Rock Summit. Mm-hmm. And one of the big splash news announcements of the show is a partial segment of the Spann Collection is for the first time ever on the market, and Collector's Edge is managing it. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about how this came about, the reactions, and then maybe all of us can go around and start looking at some fabulous pieces.
Well, of course, Gail and Jim have been collecting for a long time, and, Collector's Edge has known them for a very long time. Brian, especially. I'm newer here to Collector's Edge, but I've actually known Jim and Gail, I guess, for about 6 or 7 years. When I started off as a collector myself, they've always been very open about sharing their collection with everyone. So I was fortunate to come see their collection in their home. And now with these pieces, Collector's Edge is extremely proud to be able to represent the Spanns in bringing some of their pieces out for you to take home and share yourselves.
Fantastic. And we have just incredible cases here. I want to jump straight to the specimens. Let's start talking. Jim, Gail, I know you have stories behind every single one. We could probably sit here and film a 12-hour segment without even breaking a sweat.
As long as you give me lunch.
I might have to make you a baguette from the back of the car. Again, that's right. Okay, so should we start with, which case do we want to start with?
Right
this
here.
One right here. Fantastic. Okay.
No.
Superb. All right, Chris, tell us some of the ones that pop out here. And do we have the keys to the case? We can take some out?
We do, absolutely. There are some just incredible specimens here. One of my favorites was one of the first ones you showed on the top left. In my opinion, one of the hardest colors to get into a case is a bright, pure yellow. And the Legrandite on Matrix is just absolutely stunning.
This is superb. This is one of those super rare colors.
Yes.
As you're saying.
Not just for the hue itself, but also the saturation of color on this piece is absolutely amazing, and incredible luster as well. Look how bright that is.
That's fantastic.
The form, it's just got that it factor with the way that the crystals just radiate down like that. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful piece.
And Jim, Gail, tell us a little bit about kind of your background, how you got this, anything that you want to share with us on this piece.
Well, we always had heard that Legrandite was the holy grail of Mexican minerals. And we had gone to the American Museum of Natural History, and they had one there, and that was just kind of amazing. And so we started adding Legrandite. Jim?
Yeah, this one's from a whale of mine, and the beauty and the luster is particularly attractive from that area. We also have a number of pieces from the type locality that's a different mine in Mexico that is a whole different habit altogether. So it ends up
amazing.
Being a variety of shapes and slightly different shades of yellow for the same mineral, which is fascinates us.
Superb. Well, that certainly jumps out and catches your eye on that top shelf there.
Eyes. I like the two little eyeballs that are sitting on.
Yeah, I just kind of started looking at that. It's like two eyes in the mouth.
Yes.
Yep, I was just seeing that.
We'll call that the Legrandite scream.
There you go.
Okay, I can see this is going to be a very serious clip already.
Very, very much so.
All right.
So another, I'm a big fan of luster in minerals, and one of the most lustrous you can get is, of course, cerussite. The cerussite with malachite's especially nice in here because not only are you getting that beautiful crystal form and that luster, but you're getting green with it with the malachite.
Malachite, including the cerussite. So it's a
Yes.
very interesting combination.
And that's what made me fall in love with it, was just the fact that it was infused with that beautiful green.
And then, of course, Sumeb mine, so classic locality for that.
It glistens. It's absolutely beautiful.
Now, do you remember when in your collecting history you acquired this?
Oh,
I'm checking the catalog number.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking the tough questions there.
Yeah, that was, we had that, we'd been collecting about 5 years at that point. So that was 12 or 13 years ago.
Super.
And we've had that for a while.
the formation of the crystals is just exquisite.
I will interject with, because we have the collection number there, one of the pleasures about being able to represent this collection is the collection is meticulously documented. And that's just so essential when you're bringing pieces from a established collection out, is, you know, knowing when, where, all the history behind it, where it's been featured, where it's been, if it's been loaned to a museum, if it's been in a publication or video or anything like that. All of that adds to the history and the provenance of the piece, and it's just absolutely a pleasure bringing this out because we have all of that information. Thank you.
So look at the catalog number and get a sense for the timing, because we acquired about 1,000 pieces every year. So
Okay. Okay.
figure out, well, what number was that, and start from 1995, and that gives me
95?
2005.
Yes.
Not quite that long.
I was about to say, I've been shorting you by about 10 years.
But Jim, you're kind of the curator of the catalog, right? What are some of the fields that you have found has been most useful for you in ways that you couldn't predict when you started?
That's a great question. Obviously, we list everything by mineral species, and I also try and list all the associated minerals that I can recognize on the specimen at the same time, and then I can search or cross-reference by the associates in addition to the primary mineral. And I've set up the catalog so that I can sort it based on a whole variety of fields, whether it's what vendor it came from, how much we paid for it, what part of the world it came from, whether it be a specific mine or a region or country in the world, since we do collect worldwide.
Sure, right.
Localities.
Provenance.
If we not have the information as to who had it previously,
Right.
we often have folks come through our home and looking at the collection and saying, "Oh, I used to have that." We didn't have that information.
Very
Put a
nice.
tag on it. Saying, "Okay, we have to add this name to the."
Right on. Right on.
catalog." So it's a book I've been writing for 18 years now. It keeps being edited.
Nice.
Super. So now
Keep all the labels.
that's important. That's a very important thing. So now, when somebody acquires a piece from the collection here, do they get all of that information and all of the labels and everything?
Absolutely.
That is fantastic.
There's a number of pieces here, for example, from the British Museum that have
Okay.
been deassessed in decades past, and those original labels would go along with whatever dealer or prior collector labels that might exist for that piece. Some
Yeah.
have 5 or 6 labels attached to the same piece.
You know, that's super. And that's something that I think it's very important for the viewers to understand, that when you have such a well-defined and detailed collection database, to pass that on to the next person who will be the curator of this mineral, because all of these minerals we're just temporary curators for. It will eventually go to different homes, but to have all that information is like a secondary gift. It creates added value to the minerals versus the very same, if it was the exact same mineral that didn't have any of that except just the label on the lucite base, there is a difference. There is a quantifiable value that comes with all that information.
That's very true, and it also increases the level of accuracy of that information. If we have something that we wrote, documented 15, 18 years ago, we can pass that on to Chris and Ryan and others that they can then literally cut and paste and not have to question, all right, is this edge right from this locality? Or,
Right, right.
or for this particular period of time? We can be able to, in a very, very short period of time, get that information. pretty quickly keep it focused on exactly where it came from.
Super.
And
Yeah.
I think it's important, and I love when we have pieces that came from a woman's collection.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, of course.
In fact, there's one in this case that fits that definition.
All right, let's see.
This piece came from a very old English collection that was rediscovered about 10 years ago. It's a beautiful yellow fluorite with quartz and sphalerite from the Whale Marianne mine in Cornwall. And this came out of a collection of a young lady who was collecting in the days of fine minerals that were coming out in the mid 1800s.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And this collection had been effectively lost. It was in a cabinet under a stairwell in an old mansion
No.
that somebody dusted off the glass and looked inside and saw all these beautiful crystals. And this was one of those that came out in that collection. There was an article, a magazine article written about this on this find 5 or 6 years ago when they first came out.
Oh,
This was one that was published in that article
that's super.
for that rediscovering, if not digging new minerals out of an old.
Well, I love it. It's an older piece. It is from a classic location. It's beautiful. I love the very subtle yellow hue to it, and it's got this great part of the story that it was just under a staircase.
What astounds me is about that is the provenance itself has rarity because it was from a woman's collection. That's amazing.
And she was quite a collector. She had quite a number of things. We have from this same find. We have one piece. We hand this to Gail so I don't.
No.
We have one piece that's about this large, about so big, which we hardly ever see large things from old English collections, and it was of that quality of fluorite and quartz and a variety of other associated minerals with it.
That is just super. Okay, let's look at more great minerals here.
Absolutely. We've got two very large cases if you want to walk around this way.
Okay.
This guy back here.
I love these pieces, but they're
It take a lot of space.
take a lot of space.
Well, and that to me is always the interesting thing about your collection. It was never focused on a specific size. You have things from thumbnails and probably even smaller than that, I'm sure, up to some of these quite larger pieces here. But it's both a combination of aesthetics and it's kind of like Donnie and Marie. We got a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll. It's the aesthetic, but it's the aesthetics. Because Gail, you come from an artistic background. You're very aesthetically oriented, and Jim, you're kind of very scientifically oriented. So it really covers the spectrum. And each piece here, I mean, I always say that each great mineral has a great story behind it. And so I look at each of these pieces, and I know that it fell somewhere on that spectrum of pure beauty and pure science. And to me, it's always interesting to say, okay, where was it on that spectrum for you two in order for it to make it into your collection?
It's usually that Jim and I both agree on something that gets it in our collection. But there are times I'm like, this is so beautiful. And Jim's like, wow, but it's another hemimorphite from Mexico. And I'm like, could never have enough of those. And look at how beautiful it is. And I look at everything like if I were sketching it or I was going to paint it.
Right.
And where Jim look at the associated minerals and whatnot. So
We have over 200 hemimorphites, and I don't believe there's a single one in the sale here.
Oh, look, there's another one. Let's go get that one.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, let's pick out a couple here that we want to talk about in a little bit more detail.
Well, one of the things, too, in terms, these are obviously much larger pieces, and many of our visitors had suggested we add another wing to the house to accommodate the continued growth of the collection. And we already added 9,000 square feet for the minerals and the visitors at the home, and I didn't want to go through that again. So it's time to let some of these fantastic pieces go to new owners.
Well, as an aside, I think it would be an interesting thing to have in your house, kind of floor plan of the house when you originally first moved into it and where it is now and where it's going in the future.
Quadruple the size of it.
Exactly.
A little bit of reconstruction. I really love the hematite and the andradite. I have just adored that combination of that beautiful andradite on that really dark and imposing hematite. But the structure and the build of the crystals is just, as an artist, to me, is just a fantastic thing.
Mirror bright and most interesting, it's not quite columnar, but it's a tall, sharply edged hematite crystal from South Africa that you just don't see from hardly anywhere else in the world. And this is obviously a very large, pristine example of that hematite. We have quite a number of those, and we'll continue to have a number of those.
And why do we have a number of those? Because we love
We love them.
Yeah.
What's need got to do with it?
I had to bite the bullet on this one. But.
Well, I mean, but I think it's interesting because if I pull out here, we've got maybe what some would call a black ugly, okay? And then we've got this fabulous Chinese calcite here, and we've got the ruby in the front here, and we've got the beryl in the front here. So we have color, but it still holds its own.
Well, I have to say, in regards to the black uglies, every woman needs a little black dress. Every guy needs to have a tuxedo. Every mineral collection needs to have its tuxedo minerals. You've got all this color. You've got to give your eyes a rest looking at the wonderful tuxedo little black dress mineral. There you go.
So in future years, if we hear people come and say, "Oh, hey, there's the tuxedo specimen for this case," we know it started here.
That would be a man saying that, because a woman would say,
With a little like this. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Oh, super.
Shall we go around the other side?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Here's another fine old English piece. This barite, when we first got that, I did some research on it, and the only one I could find that was even close in either size or quality was in the British Museum, featured, in fact, in their book on Northern England minerals. And Collector's Edge cleaned it up a little bit, and it's made it much brighter and much more presentable. So it's one of those pieces. When we came in and saw this case, we said, "Oh my God, I want it back."
Yeah. I bet that's happening a lot.
It's happening a lot.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about the show has been Jim walking by and rubbernecking his own minerals.
It's like, wait, I didn't approve that.
But I have to keep sticking my hands in my pockets so I don't grab the keys to pull it back out.
And what you haven't seen is me sitting there going,
With a chair.
Oh,
So
I love
one more
them.
brunch, please.
This one has also a variety of things from around the world. This is a rhodochrosite from Gabon in Africa.
And that's a very unusual habitat. I mean, it's spectacular. And I'm actually very surprised to see it here just because of how unique it is.
We have a few.
Yeah, I was going to say it speaks to the possibility that you have more of that same style.
More of that quality, and it's time to let one of them go. It's a beauty.
And that's one of the huge benefits to the mineral market, that these things are coming back on the market. So even though you've acquired it at one point, now other people get the chance to acquire it.
Well, and we hope that they contact us and tell us their experience with minerals and see if they loved them for the same reasons we do.
Or they set up play dates that you come back and visit.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to put a fenced-in yard. And
I want a photo of Gail sitting in the garden with her old minerals around her. I'm sorry, Jim.
Story about this kunzite.
Yeah.
This tall beauty that is now a pinkish violet. We bought this from Peter Lickberg a number of years ago. And
Sure.
They've just come out of the ground, and when they're fresh, they're a deep dark blue. So this whole crystal was blue when we got it.
it was.
And we told it was the light exposure that would cause it to turn colors. So we dutifully kept it under wraps for a year or two in a drawer.
In the dark.
And we started looking at it. It was still turning anyways. And, well, the hell with this. Let's put it out and enjoy it. And have it tucked away someplace.
I think
Well, that's
we might
interesting.
have photos of it when it was blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, but that is interesting because I've heard quite often the same thing. So if it's not the UV or light that is the catalyst for the color change, it makes you wonder what is.
What is it?
Is it some kind of oxidation or something?
That's a good question. And it started at the bottom, just started turning pink, and then the blue gradually changed colors as it went up to the end. So we have this beautiful violet.
I mean, it was wrapped
Super.
in black fabric in a drawer in the dark.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
About 2 feet tall. It's a big one.
That's a super piece.
This piece has always been an interesting one. It's a fabulous scheelite from Mount Zibading in China, Sichuan province. Big, beautiful. They call it bipyramidal rather than octahedral for these particular types of crystals. And it's surrounded by what are aquamarine crystals that have been etched from the inside out.
Wow,
So you've got
okay.
a little bit of hint of bluing in those crystals, but those are all aquamarines on muscovite. So it's
I didn't realize that.
rested on the aquas that makes it distinctive. I've never seen those. Well, actually, we have a small piece with a similar characteristic. Those are the only ones I've ever seen like that.
That is super. And I remember when the scheelites first started coming out of Korea, and it was the talk of the industry, how big and fabulous they are. And now that these scheelites are coming out of China, it's nobody wants a Korean scheelite anymore.
Right. If you look at this spodumene here, you put a UV light on it and you get a tangerine orange. It's the same color as that.
Really? Wow.
It's a very distinctive color change when you put ultraviolet on it.
Can I just mention that tugging at my heartstrings, this is quartz with amethyst.
What did you name it, Gail?
Well, I named it the melted crayon.
It does look like that.
It looks like somebody put some crayons on glass and it melted, but it's just, the color is just so rich. Absolutely beautiful.
Well-
I hope somebody really enjoys this.
Absolutely. And I love it because it's somewhat mottled, which actually brings more attention to the color. If it were solid purple, it wouldn't be as striking as having all that white interspersed in it, which gives you that contrast and really makes that color pop.
It's like there's things going on inside each crystal. So
Absolutely.
it's beautiful.
Or
That's a
inside
hard one for
each
me.
each melted crayon.
And that comes from Uruguay, where the deepest, darkest purples tend to be.
Yeah.
Usually they're all, as you say, all the same color.
Exactly. Right. And you kind of you lose the details because it's so monochromatic. Even though it's a beautiful color, it's your eyes can't see any difference. It's the contrast that really creates the imagery there.
That's a hard one for me. I'd like to highlight.
Yes.
Uh,
Well, Jim, go
The
for
Weiss mine in New Hampshire. These beautiful octahedral fluorides, a deep, rich green that this mine in New Hampshire is famous for. We have had a couple of large examples of this, and so many times there's a lot of white fluorite with it that doesn't, it kind of detunes the green in a sense, and this one does not have that at all. It's lustrous, translucent, a little bit of frosting face. It actually has a transparent interior, but it's a fabulous piece from old finds in that part of the world.
So this is one of the things I always say about vivid saturation. You can't keep it in your head.
Yeah.
Every time I look at the green of this fluorite, it's fresh to me because what I have in my memory is not what I see when I see it again. So a truly vivid mineral looks just like the first time every time you see it.
That's an interesting point because as a collector, it may bring you back over and over, even to your own collection.
Absolutely.
To reappreciate the things that you've acquired with those very vibrant colors, which is my segue into the rhodochrosite slab.
That was
Another
one of the
one
very
that was
first
hard.
pieces that we ever bought. We got that slab. These are from Argentina, the classic locality in Capelina for the slices of the rhodochrosite stalactites that were unique to that part of the world. And as Gail mentions, it was hard to let that one go. It's such a unique, large piece.
And our grandchildren call it the grapefruit
Ah,
See that?
because it looks like grapefruit, even with the little center.
totally. Yeah.
And this one, and we have one other. They were at the Perot Museum for a number of years.
9 years.
9 years. They had a
We've,
rhodochrosite case, so it represented that part of the loan.
Sometimes with museum loans, we have to remind them that they don't own them and they need to come back to us.
Well, it's kind of like, well, if they don't call us, we'll just keep it here. It'll be
We
fine.
extend those loan
Totally.
documents.
Can't blame them.
Yes.
Okay, talk to me about this copper. This thing just keeps
Yes.
popping out at me. I love this. Just it's so
Huge
sculptural.
crystals from the classical Quincy mine, one of the most economic commercial mines, copper mines, certainly in the country, if not in the world. That many of these came out in the mid 1800s when the fabulous native copper mines and discoveries of the Keweenaw Peninsula were made, and this maybe we believe is one of those that came out at that time. So it's, the question is it arborescent with these large blocky crystals on the top of it, or how actually do you?
I believe on the top right there, you even have like a spinel.
Is there
twin.
spinel up there?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. You know, and I don't know if it's just because recently the mineralogical record came out with that copper issue, that just a fantastic issue, but it really catches my eye. But even as I'm looking at this, I can't help but,
I know.
Sumab,
I know.
hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, this big piece, the collector's edge actually trimmed. It had a little too much.
This is the smaller version.
That's
Smaller
the small version. Yep.
It had a little too much matrix, and it cleaned up incredibly well. You don't hardly ever see. In fact, I've never seen another large Sumab
So did they trim it before it went into your collection, or did they trim it for this exhibit?
for this exhibit.
Okay, for this, okay.
Yeah, we want to
Super.
know where the little bits and pieces went, though.
We have.
No, just joking.
What bits and pieces?
But this piece was so large that we had to lay it flat, and you couldn't ever get the right light on it.
Sure, yeah.
And oftentimes things that end up on the bottom shelf often get pushed to the back before you know it, it disappears.
Exactly.
And it deserved more attention than that.
You know, it's
Fabulous
funny
piece.
because I'm enjoying it now more than I did when it was in our collection.
Yeah.
That's super.
'Cause I
That's
just
super.
We just couldn't see it well.
Above that is a really interesting pre-night cast after, I'm not sure what, calcite, I guess. And this came out of the Rock Courier collection.
Now, let me interrupt you for a quick second, Jim, because what the viewers will not be able to see, because I can't see it in the camera, but I can see it in real life, is it looks like it's covered with a layer of druzy quartz, sugar quartz. It is so beautiful, and it's just not coming up on the camera.
No, it
Yeah.
scintillates.
It sparkles. There's a sparkling in every direction, every angle you look
Do you
at.
know the number one thing I have found with newcomers coming to see minerals is that sparklies, as they call them, sparklies are something that they're drawn to.
Absolutely.
Early on, we had the same point with the wives and lady friends of real collectors. They came to the house, and they may not have been interested in minerals, but as soon as they saw the sparkling gemstones, they paid attention and started asking about the crystals that they would be paired with on a cut and rough basis. So as a consequence, we've built up quite a large cut and rough combination. In fact, there's a display case here of that at the Denver show.
Yeah, Chris tells me it's called the Siberian Husky Syndrome. Where all of a sudden it's like, oh, squirrel, squirrel, squirrel.
Well, I think we've all got a little,
Sparkles.
I think all of us collectors have a little bit of Raven in us. We're very much attracted to shiny objects.
A little bit of Raven. Okay.
Absolutely.
You had to go a little dark on that one.
That's funny.
And then over here,
Oh. How many cases do we have here? We have the two large ones. We have two here. 6.
I think so.
6, yes.
Super.
We have the 2 stand-up cases, the 2 large aquarium cases, and 2 other stand-ups.
And Chris, if viewers are not planning on coming to Denver, how can they see what is available? Is it online?
So
Do they have to wait till Tucson?
no, we did a true debut. None of these pieces were available until 10 in the morning yesterday.
Okay.
But now that everybody who's showed up to see them has had a chance, if you'd like to contact us at minerals@collectorsedge.com, if you see anything or if there's anything in particular you're looking for, we would be happy to assist you with showing you pieces remotely during the show as well.
Super, super.
And we have some spectacular pieces in this case. In the back left is probably my favorite piece in the case. The Chinese silver on the back left is just absolutely astounding.
It's like
It's
a feeling shift.
the best Chinese silver I've personally seen, and just
And I see a teapot, tea kettle.
Well, because you collect tea kettles. Why wouldn't you?
the length of the wires, and if I remember correctly, one of them wraps around to a quite extraordinary length
Yes.
on that piece.
In front of that
Super.
is a really large scorodite as well.
Mhm.
Deep blue, large crystals. It's most unusual.
It's funny, as we're going through this, I'm remembering when we got them, who we got them from, and where.
Memory.
Yeah, lots of memories. There is a piece here I would like to highlight, though, and
Okay.
that would be this albite.
Mm.
It always looked like a Spanish fan that was
Yeah,
closed.
yeah.
And it used to belong to Joe Freilich, and as you know, he was a character.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gone now, but it kind of adds to the story of who used to own it.
Yeah, I've always called it the Spanish fan.
Yes.
The Spanish fan. Yeah.
That's it.
Perfect name.
Above that is an ancient linerite from the Red Beal mine in northern England. That came out of the British Museum, and we have the provenance of that piece all the way back to the 1840s, when that it was one of the very first linerites ever found in the United Kingdom.
Oh,
Really?
We're going to need to double the price on that one.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, oh, we forgot to mention that.
That was one that I really, really thought long and
Struggled,
hard about
yes.
letting go. We do have another one from that same period,
Yes.
but I wouldn't mind if that one didn't sell.
And next to it is the rocket.
Oh, the rocket from Pedonera.
so yeah, just an incredibly iconic piece. And this is one thing that I love about being to represent, a collector's collection. Everything that we are showing here in these cases has already been curated.
Good point.
These are already top pieces that have been added to a world-class collection. And so it's just coming by the show and just looking through these is giving you just an incredible education on worldwide minerals. And to have, an iconic rocket pocket piece in there, you're just not finding those anymore.
Exactly.
In the back center is another historic piece, the bright red, deep red Proustite, San Lucio, Chile. That has an interesting history. It was a trimming off of a gigantic boulder of Proustite.
Come
The Harvard
on.
Museum acquired
I did.
directly from the mine in the 1800s, and all the crystals look very much like that. And there were 5 or 6 trimmings that came off, and we have a couple of them. So
Does Harvard still have the original
they do
boulder?
still have the original boulder. Yeah.
We'll have to have Raquel
Talk about
voice in on that. That's awesome.
And all of the pieces that you're going to see here, any of this provenance is going to come with the pieces.
that's right.
Super.
This spodumene here was one of the very first kunzites that we ever acquired, especially as a large piece. There's hardly ever see kunzite in matrix, and this one is interesting smoky quartz. There's more kunzite layers literally underneath the crystal at different angles. So
It
it's
has a lot going on.
A little bit
Yeah.
of tourmaline association in the back as
Is
well.
that
No?
lepidolite too?
Yeah.
Super.
I'm kind of rediscovering our minerals during this.
Yeah, you do.
You do, yes.
Especially when you're forced to talk about them.
Oh,
This,
of course, this is a pleasure.
the cerussite in the bottom. I've always been intrigued by it. Cerussite will come in 3 different habits. It can be reticulated, where you have all kinds of pieces, angled arms coming off of it. It could be V-twin. and it can be bladed, straight bladed. This has all three habits on one piece.
That is
Wow.
amazing.
And then, God, look at that mimetite.
And who doesn't love mimetite?
Absolutely.
All
And we
right.
have a wonderful Kelly mine Swissonite over here too. Dad's already whispering in my ear. Where did we let that go?
Well, and I was telling Gail earlier that one of the things that after my first visit to see your collection that I would tell people over and over is this incredible case, this incredible rainbow case of Smithsonites in every color imaginable.
Yeah, we call that our polychrome case.
Oh, I love it.
It really has every imaginable color.
It's a personal favorite.
People have a hard time believing that's all the same.
It's the best educational case because I'm like, see this whole case of all these different crystal shapes, colors, everything. And I said, it's all the same mineral.
Yeah.
And they're like, what?
What? Tell me more.
Do I really want to get into this hobby?
There's a number of interesting pieces in here, starting with Rowley mine, Florida and back of size.
Fluorite?
I miss wolfenite.
Say, don't say fluorite. That would be
That
wolfenite.
would be wolfenite.
Either that or the most unusual habitat of fluorite we've ever seen.
And that was the mineral that started our collecting.
That's right. It was a San Francisco wolfenite
At the
at Houston.
Houston Museum. And it was really Gail's story, but she wrote down the word wolfenite on
On a napkin.
napkin with her eyeliner pencil, which she ruined in the process.
I ruined
Went
it.
home and Googled it, and next thing you can know, we just say, "Hey, honey, you can buy this stuff." And we've been doing it ever since.
What happened to the pencil that got ruined? The eye pencil.
Oh, it's stuck in a rock, kind of like that one.
This is the eye pencil and the stone.
That would be the sword and the stone. Yes.
In front of that is to the left here is a fabulous 6-link cubanite. I've always been a big fan of these from Canada, from the Henderson number 2 mine, and it's not on this label particularly, but it's the Chibougamau or something like that district, and we have. Whenever I see one of those, I grab it. We have, several of them that have been published in magazines.
They're prominent in our collection, definitely.
So one of the things that I don't know if you guys know, when Zach and I were there and putting everything together to bring up here to Denver, Stephanie, his wife, was there and she was giggling maniacally to herself because Zach and I were geeking out so hard over the rarities like the cubanite and the cerussite and things like that. We were just being the biggest nerds of all time. Look at this. So she was tickled.
Folioites are something that we also have a tremendous appreciation for. And we have quite a few. And this is a nice small plate with some prominent crystals.
And I believe your father was involved with that particular find.
My
I think in
father,
the
yeah,
70s.
my father was digging there. I actually would go down there once in a while and visit him. And there is a story about me shutting the mine down inadvertently because I thought it would be funny to jump on top of the ore cart as it's being hauled out of the tunnel up an incline, not realizing this might be a bad idea.
That is a story.
I'd like to tell about it.
We have some pieces from the original discovery of this mineral in the 1890s, 1880s, 1890s.
Wow.
And some of them with AE foot labels. A famous dealer from Philadelphia that he passed in 1895, so they preceded his passing, and they were just fabulous pieces that came out.
Superb. Superb.
There's,
All right.
In the back center here is a piece that the British Museum would love to have because they don't have one. It's pyrrhotite from the Cambiscale mine in Durham in England, and this is a really thick crystals that stand on end as opposed to typically they're like poker chip stacks.
Ah,
Like a beautiful fan.
Was this
From
the
Russia, Illinois.
Lindsay and Patricia
This
Greenbank
was a
collection?
greenback collection.
Okay. Super.
And,
We just have one that's
We have another one.
We have another one, yes.
Yeah. Oh,
And that's one that is a rarity and a significant example of in size of that particular mineral and habit.
like I said, we can go hours on this. Let's jump to one of the other cases. And while we're headed over there, Gail and Jim, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about the process you had to go in curating which pieces from your collection would be offered for sale. I can't imagine that would have been an easy process.
It was not.
And talking about some of these kind of lost children as it is.
Yes.
We've had a need to cull our collection for a number of years. Folks were telling us we should add another wing to the house, and we thought that was not a good idea.
Right.
We'd already done that.
We have
So it was time.
just around 20,000 pieces in the collection. And we built suites, lots of suites. We don't inhibit by size,
Right. Right.
so, and so we were running out of room. We have 73 cases in our home, and they were starting to be like
Little too,
sardines.
yeah, a little too cramped. Yeah.
And Jim and I were talking about adding on again, but that is so
At what
disruptive
point?
to
Yeah.
life.
Sure.
and,
Sure.
So we decided that we would cull some of our pieces out, and it's not easy because I, in particular, have an emotional tie to many.
Of course you do. Yeah. I mean, it's many times I hear stories from dealers who say, "Oh, I had to sell that piece, but God, I would have loved to keep it." And so, I imagine there had to be like thin slicing. There had to be like a process where the first step is, okay, we have duplicates. And so to me, it's kind of interesting to share with the viewers what some of those first steps might have been.
In overcoming that first step, as you say, don't bother me with duplicates. We're in love with every one of them.
Of course, yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Brian Lees was instrumental in breaking through that, that
Right.
barrier in a sense,
That
because
was
what we
big.
did was we went around to every case. We selected 3 or 4 pieces from every case in the house.
Right.
And he was selecting, all right, this one's better, and keep that one.
Okay.
And this is really good.
You needed an outside perspective to help
Yes.
guide you
Go
through,
through that.
but not someone who's just dictating, someone who's working with you and
Right.
saying, okay, this is the reason why this one's better, and maybe you want to let that one go. Who doesn't know the stories behind them?
And
Right.
we've had people try to dictate to us.
Yeah, and
And
that doesn't go well.
It does not go well. No. And there were times that we pulled stuff and then we said, I just can't let it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah, we said no a number of times.
One of my favorites was when we were down there and I commented, Jim, this rutile is absolutely amazing. And Jim said, yes, it is. And
Pull it out.
I can't believe you're letting us take this. You're right. I will take it away.
Yeah, it's too good to let go.
Damn it. And after day 3, you're like, okay, just bite your tongue from now on.
I think that I pulled 2 pieces, maybe 3,
Okay.
that I couldn't live without. And I was so surprised to see that Jim pulled more than I did because I thought I had the more emotional tie and it was really hard. But I also enjoy the fact that maybe somebody is going to love them as much as we do.
And that's
And that's
I think
important.
that helps because, like we said earlier in the interview, we are all just temporary curators of every piece in every collection.
Yeah.
So it's going on, and it might be that helping visualize the joy that the next person will get makes that a little bit easier to
Does.
deacquisition
It
something.
actually does because the night before that we were going to start the culling process, my stomach was in knots. It really was. But then I would look at pieces and go, and it would be next to 3 other pieces, and I would say, we can let that go. We can
Okay.
let that go. And it gave us more room temporarily because if I know us, we'll be filling it
Exactly.
back
Now
up
it's like,
again.
okay, let's fill those gaps.
But it
And
did.
after the fact, we've pulled back 9 pieces counting.
So, yes.
Super.
Here's a Medina aqua
Mhm.
that we often call the Superman crystal.
Certainly.
And,
Dun, 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 dun.
gorgeous thing.
And, yet again, everybody wants a Medina.
Yes.
And the fact that you have taken one out of your collection and it's here is remarkable, both for the fact of okay, well, then what else do they have in their collection that they can release this? But also for the fact that this is on the market and you have probably visualized, like I was just saying, the next person
Yes.
who's going to eagerly acquire this saying, my God, look what I found.
Oh, and you want to know a different perspective. Brian Lees is a good friend of ours. We didn't want to just try to push off
Yeah.
pieces that weren't going to be sought after. We wanted to ensure that Collector's Edge did well. So we sent some pieces that were a hard gulp.
That were really hard. Yep. And I bet this was one of them.
This is, you can't entice people with just a small amount of minerals. You have to put some good stuff in there.
Absolutely.
And we put a lot of good stuff in here.
Yeah, we can see.
Our best Medina piece happens to be on display here at the show. It's in the back wall of this very room we're in.
Oh, and the Spann's favorite case.
Yeah.
In this case, it's one of the finest, one of those unique 12 crystals that were kept from the gem cutters back in the, I think
Thank
that
God.
was the 80s or
Yeah.
90s. And it's clearly one of our favorite pieces.
And this
but we're
one,
willing to share it with everybody. Is kind
It
of
has just so much interesting things going on inside of it.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's held a gorgeous color.
Dissolution, doubly terminated, the interesting
Terminated.
inclusions.
Nice.
Yep.
And again, that was one of the things we really loved is it's not just the aesthetics. We've got incredible rarities from around the world and unusual crystal habits. No matter what your collecting style is, you're going to find something in these cases that's going to utterly fascinate you and just tickle you to see.
All right, let's do one more deep dive into a story here. Is that a San Francisco down?
It
is
is.
San
all
Francisco.
places that came out of the Manette collection and were specialists in thumbnails. It's a large San Francisco line wolfenite that it's just an amazing piece.
Well, as you know, that was my first incredible passion for minerals was the San Francisco mine wolfenites. And I thought, how can crystals not be just pointy? How could they be flat and have beveled edges on them?
Yeah.
But this piece is large. And as we said, we're missing some space. But whoever gets this piece, bless your heart, because this is really, really a gorgeous piece.
And I have a very strong affinity to San Francisco wolfenites. I lived down there for 2 years, and my dad was mining it with Wayne Thompson and James Horner.
Wow.
If you go up to the top center there is what I call a Afghan blue cap. Beautiful red rubellite crystal with a strong indigo blue cap on the top of it with deep dark smoky quartz and the Clevelandite variety of albite.
That was another hard gulp for me.
beauty.
Because it's, as a painter, I could see that's just the best lineup for painting a beautiful.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so sculptural.
But luckily,
And
Tom,
I love because it's not perfectly symmetrical.
Right.
It's that asymmetry that creates so much just dynamic feel to this that you can't stand and just look at it. You got to kind of, like what I'm doing with the camera, go back and forth and kind of see behind some of the crystals. And just because it says blue cap there, I kind of want to stop on this one, but I'm not going to because I'm going to have you guys talk about this fluorite, and that'll be the last one that we cover.
This was on display in our house, and it was always mentioned, in particular by women, as being absolutely gorgeous. So we had it beautifully lit as well. But I love that it's from France. We don't have as many French minerals as I would like, but it's exquisite in the way it's presented. It glows. It's sitting on a nice matrix. It's always just been one of my favorites. And again, this was another one of those that I struggled with letting go, but we have to make space, and I hope that.
And you got to pick some really great ones. Like you
For me, what I love about this piece is the calcite. To me, is reminiscent of driftwood, and so you have the incredibly sharp, crystalline form with an almost organic-looking form as well, and the combination together is just astounding.
That is just spectacular. And that's a very, very good articulation of, how you see it. All righty. Well, that is what's happening at the 2023 Hard Rock Summit. Chris, thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Gail, really appreciate sharing stories and time. Jim,
Thank you.
all the best. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.